My girlfriend encouraged me to open up in therapy, only to secretly record my most private sessions and share them in a group chat where her friends laughed at my trauma like it was stand-up comedy. When I confronted her, she painted me as the unstable one and told everyone I was having a mental breakdown. People actually believed her, until I exposed everything, receipts and all. She thought violating me would be funny. She had no idea who she was messing with. Hey, before we move on to the video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thanks. I don't even know how to start this. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that this actually happened to me, that someone I trusted this much would do something so violating and disgusting, and still manage to convince herself she did nothing wrong. I'm a 26-year-old guy, and I've always been the quiet one in any group. I'm not socially awkward, I just don't open up easily. I learned early on that when you talk about your feelings too much, people either dismiss you or use your vulnerability against you. My family wasn't exactly abusive, but emotional support wasn't a thing growing up. Crying got you sent to your room. Talking back got you grounded. Needing attention got you ignored. So, I learned to bottle things up. By the time I met my now ex, Sophie, I had gotten really good at hiding how much of a mess I was inside. We met in college, and she was one of those warm, extroverted people who immediately draws everyone in. I was quiet. She was vibrant. I was guarded. She was open. She liked that I listened. I liked that she talked. She made me feel seen. For a while, it felt like I had lucked out. Sophie was supportive, affectionate, and totally accepting of my quieter nature. She even encouraged me to try therapy, something I had danced around for years but never followed through on. I still remember the conversation. It was one of those late-night talks you have in bed with someone when the rest of the world disappears. "You're so strong for carrying so much on your own," she told me, tracing her fingers along my arm. "But you shouldn't have to." I almost cried. That was the first time anyone ever said that to me. Not "get over it," not "you're being dramatic." Just, "you shouldn't have to." It broke something open in me. A few weeks later, I found a therapist and started going once a week. Therapy was hard. The first few sessions, I sat there in silence, unsure how to even begin. But I pushed through. I talked about things I hadn't spoken about since I was a kid, about how I always felt like a backup plan in my family, how I learned to become the safe guy who didn't make waves because that was the only way to stay included, about how I had panic attacks in college and hid them from everyone, including Sophie, because I didn't want to seem weak. And Sophie was great, at least in the beginning. She'd ask how therapy went, and I'd give her the sanitized version. Yeah, talked about my childhood a bit, or just processing some stuff. She never pried too hard, and I appreciated that. But every now and then, she'd say things that made me pause. Like the time we were watching a movie and a male character started crying and she said, "Ugh, it's such a turnoff when guys cry like that." Then she laughed and added, "Well, I mean, unless there's a good reason." I remember looking at her and wondering what counted as a good reason. Was a panic attack a good enough reason? Was talking about your emotionally distant parents acceptable? Or would she find that pathetic? I shrugged it off. Everyone says dumb things sometimes. I chalked it up to a moment of insensitivity. Then there was the time she jokingly said, "If we ever break up, I'm definitely going to win the sympathy vote. You've got, like, a therapist worth of issues." She laughed when she said it. I laughed too, but it sat wrong with me for days. Still, I loved her. I thought she loved me too. And therapy was helping. I was learning to unpack years of emotional repression, starting to believe I deserved to be heard and understood. I was even starting to consider proposing. I'd been saving for a ring. I didn't know it yet, but by that point, Sophie had already started betraying me in ways I couldn't have imagined. One night after a session, I got into the car and found it weird that the center console had been shifted slightly. Just a small detail. The cord for my charger was tucked under the armrest in a way I never left it. I didn't think much of it. Maybe I was misremembering. Maybe she had moved it when she borrowed my car the night before. My mind dismissed it, even as something inside me quietly whispered, "That's not right." Later that week, Sophie brought up a very specific phrase I had used in therapy, a metaphor I used to describe how I felt walking into my parents' house, like walking into a room where everyone already decided the conversation before you arrived. I never told her that. I know I never did. But she said it casually, like it was something she just thought of herself. "You know," she said, "I bet you felt like your family always talked in code, like walking into a room where they'd already decided the conversation. That would mess anyone up." I froze. My mouth went dry. Yeah, I said. That's a good way of putting it. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and went back to scrolling through her phone. That was the moment the unease really began to take root. Not full-blown suspicion, just discomfort. Like when you realize someone's been in your bedroom without telling you. You don't know what they touched, but you know something's been moved. I wish I had trusted that feeling. I wish I had leaned into that discomfort instead of letting myself believe the lie I needed to hear, that the person I loved would never violate something as sacred as therapy. But I didn't. Not yet. It all unraveled because of something completely mundane. Sophie was in the shower. Her phone, which she was normally glued to, buzzed 3 times in a row on the dresser. Not a big deal. But then it buzzed again. And again. 5 times in maybe 15 seconds. I was sitting nearby and figured it might be urgent. Maybe work, maybe a friend in trouble. I never went through her phone. I had no reason to. I trusted her. She had all my passwords, access to my laptop, my Spotify, my Netflix. She even helped me fill out my insurance paperwork once. That's the level of trust we had. But that night, I picked up the phone, just to glance at the notifications, just to see if it was something she needed to know about right away. It was from a group chat. I didn't recognize the name, but it was something like bitches and brunch with a bunch of sparkly emojis. The preview message said, OMG, not the crying again weird. Then another message popped up. Please tell me you have a clip from this one. The voice cracks give me life. It felt like getting dunked into freezing water. Something about it was instantly wrong. My stomach clenched. I knew. It had something to do with me. I hesitated. I really did. For about 5 seconds, I told myself to put the phone down. That this wasn't okay. That it was a violation. But I opened it. I wish I hadn't. I really do. But I'm glad I did. The chat was filled with messages from Sophie and 3 of her friends. 2 I had met briefly, 1 I didn't know. The conversation went back months. Screenshots, audio files, jokes, memes, and voice recordings. Dozens of them. The first one I played nearly made me throw up. It was me. My voice. From a therapy session. The clip was maybe 30 seconds long. I was talking about the first time I remembered feeling worthless. How I came home with a drawing I was proud of in 2nd grade, and my dad barely looked up from his phone. I said something like, I remember thinking, oh, that's what love looks like when it disappears. That exact phrase. My therapist had nodded, gently prompted me to go deeper. I had cried a little, not full-on sobbing, just the kind of tears that come when a wound's been festering too long and finally gets touched. And here it was, shared in a group chat. Captioned, Bro thinks he's in a movie, another message, Jesus. I'd leave too if my kid was this dramatic. And Sophie had replied, it's the trauma dump for me, clip after clip. Me talking about panic attacks. My fear of abandonment. My guilt over not being man enough. My sexual insecurity. Things I had never, ever told anyone except a licensed professional. Things I couldn't say out loud in my own head without feeling ashamed. I sat there frozen, phone in my hand, ears ringing. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. It wasn't just the fact that she'd recorded it, though that was horrifying enough. It was what she did with it. The way she turned my pain into entertainment. The way she laughed at it. The way her friends joined in like it was some kind of cruel sport. I don't even remember walking into the bathroom. I was suddenly just there, holding her phone out like it was a weapon. I didn't yell. I couldn't. My voice came out thin and cracked, like something was already broken inside me. What the hell is this? She blinked, half wrapped in a towel, dripping wet. What? This, I said. This chat. These recordings. Of me. In therapy. What is this? For a second, something passed over her face, not guilt, not fear. Just surprise that I'd found it. Then she rolled her eyes and reached for a towel. Oh my God, why were you going through my phone? That's what she said. That was her first response. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I can explain. Not, it's not what you think. Just straight into defense mode. Straight into you're the one violating privacy here. I wasn't going through your phone, I said. It lit up. It kept buzzing. I thought it was important. You thought you'd just snoop because your feelings were hurt? She snapped, wrapping the towel around herself tighter. You literally invaded my privacy. I was stunned. Actually stunned. You recorded my therapy sessions and sent them to your friends for fun, I said slowly. And I'm the one who invaded your privacy? She scoffed. Don't be dramatic. I wasn't laughing at you. I was just sharing some stuff with my girls. You know how it is. We talk about everything. That was confidential. That was supposed to be safe. She waved her hand. God, you were so sensitive. Maybe you shouldn't say things in therapy if you don't want them repeated. And don't act like it was every session. It was just a few clips. I don't know. I was curious. Curious. She crossed her arms. You never really tell me what you talk about in there. You always act like it's some sacred mystery. Maybe I wanted to know the real you. I could feel myself shaking. My entire body was buzzing, like every nerve ending had been set on fire. You wanted to know the real me? So you spied on me? And laughed behind my back with your friends? She looked like she was getting angry now. Not embarrassed. Not remorseful. Angry. Like I had dared to ruin her perfect evening. God, this is why I did it, she snapped. You're always playing the victim. You act like you're this poor little boy with a broken heart. But you don't think about how draining it is to be with someone like you. You're like an emotional black hole. I just stared at her. She kept going. Do you know how exhausting it is to date someone who's always one bad memory away from crying? I'm not your therapist. I'm your girlfriend. And honestly, sometimes it's like you need more help than I can give. I said nothing. She rolled her eyes again. Whatever. I was going to delete the recordings anyway. I walked out. I didn't say anything else. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just left. I got in my car and drove for 2 hours. No destination, no plan. Just drive. Just keep moving. That night, I slept in the parking lot of a 24-hour gym. The next morning, I called my boss and told him I needed a few days. Then I called my sister, told her I needed a place to stay. She didn't ask why. She just said yes. I haven't spoken to Sophie since. But that was only the beginning. I thought leaving would bring relief. That once I walked out that door and away from her, some weight would lift. Instead, I felt hollow. The kind of hollow you feel when you wake up and can't remember who you were for a second. When your phone buzzes and you reach for it, expecting her name. When a joke you want to share hits your brain and dies on your tongue. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. She'd taken the most personal, most painful pieces of me and turned them into a group chat punchline. The days after I left blurred into a haze. I stayed at my sister's place, crashed on her couch, barely spoke. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating much either. She offered me support in the only way she knew how, by making sure there was coffee in the pot every morning and a clean blanket folded over the couch every night. That was enough. It took me 4 days to finally tell her what happened. She didn't interrupt. She just sat there, stunned, listening to me unravel the whole thing. When I played one of the voice recordings that had been sent back to Sophie in that group chat, a clip of me trying to talk about suicidal thoughts I had during college, my sister visibly flinched. Jesus Christ, she whispered. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. She always gave me the creeps. That surprised me. My sister had never voiced a single concern about Sophie before. She'd always been polite when they were together. But she told me now, flat out, that Sophie always struck her as fake. Too charming. Too polished. Too performative. I just figured you saw something in her I didn't, she said. But now? Now it makes sense. That was the first time I allowed myself to feel angry. Up until then, I'd just been hurt. Hollow. Devastated. But hearing my sister say it like that, like Sophie wasn't just wrong for me, but rotten, lit something inside me. I had been humiliated, violated, and emotionally gutted. And Sophie? She was probably sitting pretty in our apartment, spinning the narrative however she wanted. That suspicion was confirmed a week later when I got a text from a mutual friend, Kyle. Hey man, I don't know what's going on between you and Sophie, but she's telling people you had a breakdown and left her out of nowhere? Is that true? I didn't answer right away. My fingers hovered over the screen. I scrolled back through our messages. Kyle and I weren't best friends, but we'd hung out a lot as a group, game nights, barbecues, weekend trips. He wasn't someone who liked drama. If he was reaching out, it meant Sophie was talking. So I called him. 10 minutes later, I was seething. She had told people I was emotionally unstable, that I was spiraling in therapy and projecting it all onto her. She made it sound like I was the paranoid one, that I accused her of spying, stormed out in a delusional rage, and was probably off his meds or something. What meds? I wasn't even on any. But the worst part? She'd told multiple people that she'd recorded one short snippet of a therapy session as a joke, because I was being overly dramatic, and that I'd found it, freaked out, and tried to turn it into some weird betrayal narrative. She was minimizing it, turning it into a joke, gaslighting me to her friends, turning me into the unstable one while she got sympathy for trying to help her poor, broken boyfriend. And they were buying it. I couldn't breathe. Again, that same drowning feeling came rushing back. Because here's the thing, when someone tells a lie that close to the truth, it becomes plausible. And if you're the one who's been in therapy, crying about childhood trauma, you start to seem less credible. You start to look fragile. And fragile people are easy to dismiss. I didn't want to play that game. I didn't want to get down into the mud with her. But I couldn't just let her control the story. So I did the only thing I could. I made my own version of the truth, one that didn't require shouting or accusations. I wrote it all down. Everything. From how she encouraged me to go to therapy, to the subtle comments that chipped away at my trust, to the voice recordings and the disgusting group chat messages. I included screenshots. One of her actual replies in the group chat said, "I should charge admission to these breakdown monologues." I didn't embellish. I didn't insult her. I didn't even name her directly. But I posted it on a subreddit where we had a few mutuals lurking, a place where our friend group had sometimes posted memes and jokes. The post blew up. I didn't include her name, but it didn't take long for people to figure it out. The friends who had always found Sophie a little too much reached out to me privately and apologized. One of them even said, "I always wondered why she didn't want you around when we did girls' night." Now I know, we were the punchline. Her group chat, the bitches and brunch crew, two of them messaged me. One tried to apologize, saying she didn't realize how serious it was and that she thought Sophie had gotten consent to share the clips. The other doubled down. She said I was overreacting, that everyone vents, and that it wasn't some big betrayal. She called me fragile and told me to man up. I blocked them both. Then came the big one. Sophie messaged me. At first, she tried to play the victim again. "You really had to make it public? I didn't deserve that. Then, I thought we loved each other. How could you turn everyone against me?" I didn't answer. So she tried a different angle. "Look, I messed up. I was stupid. I was insecure. I thought if I understood you better, I could help. I wasn't trying to humiliate you. Please don't let this be the end of us." It was the first time she admitted any guilt at all. And even then, it was drenched in self-pity and damage control. I still didn't answer. I was done. The first step was deleting her number. Not blocking, not muting, deleting, because I didn't want even the option to reply. I knew if I kept that door cracked open, she'd find a way to wiggle back in, with guilt, with charm, with fake remorse. I didn't need that anymore. What I needed was space, silence, distance. I focused on survival, routines. My sister's guest room became my temporary sanctuary. I cooked for the first time in weeks. I made a rule to walk 5 miles a day, not for fitness, but for clarity. Movement helped. It always had. I returned to therapy, too, same therapist. I told her everything. And when I admitted what had happened, how Sophie had recorded our sessions and sent them to others, my therapist paused. Then she said, very carefully, "That was an extreme violation, and I'm so sorry you went through that." For some reason, I cried harder in that moment than I had through the whole thing. Because someone finally acknowledged that I wasn't being dramatic. That what had happened wasn't just a bad breakup or a misunderstanding. It was abuse. Not physical. Not even what most people would consider emotional abuse at first glance. But it was covert, systematic, cruel. For a while, I did nothing except repair. I cut ties with people who stayed neutral. I reconnected with a few friends I'd let drift. The ones who had quietly disappeared while Sophie monopolized my time, my energy, my reality. One of them, Leah, actually laughed when I told her everything. Not because it was funny, because she'd seen it coming. "She always treated you like a fixer-upper," Leah said. "Like a project, not a partner." I started journaling again. Got a new apartment, smaller, cheaper, quieter. I didn't take much from the old place. Just clothes, my books, some photos from childhood. Everything else? Let her keep it. My therapist said something that stuck with me. Sometimes healing isn't about reclaiming what was taken. It's about letting go of what was never yours to begin with. Sophie wasn't mine. Not really. Not the real version. She was a performance. And I was the fool clapping from the front row, believing every act. But here's where things get interesting. About 3 months after I left, I got an email from a woman named Angela. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. But the subject line made me stop. "We should talk. I'm Sophie's coworker." I opened it. The email was long, careful, and devastating. Angela was a project manager at the company where Sophie worked. She said she'd found me through the story I'd anonymously posted online. A friend had shared it with her because they suspected it was about Sophie. Angela had connected the dots, and she wanted to tell me what she knew. Turns out, Sophie hadn't just used me for emotional entertainment. She'd done similar things at work. She had a pattern. Angela explained that Sophie had once recorded a Zoom meeting between two other coworkers, clipped out a private conversation they were having in a breakout room about one of them going through a messy divorce, and then played it at a team dinner as a funny moment. Everyone had laughed awkwardly. No one reported it. But now, in light of what I'd written, Angela realized it was the same behavior. Sophie didn't value privacy. She collected vulnerabilities like currency and traded them in for attention, or leverage, or just plain amusement. Angela said she'd already submitted a report to HR, and she asked if I'd be willing to confirm anything I wrote in a formal statement. I said yes, and that's how it started. Over the next few weeks, I spoke with her company's HR rep, who'd apparently already received multiple complaints about Sophie, some recent, some older. They asked for context. I gave them everything: messages, screenshots, dates, audio clips. 2 weeks later, Angela sent me a one-line email. She's gone. No explanation. No details. Just gone. I don't know if she was fired or if she resigned to avoid a formal termination. I didn't care. What mattered was that someone, finally, held her accountable. She wasn't untouchable after all. That was the first part of the revenge. The second came a few weeks later, in the form of a shaky, late-night voicemail. Her voice was slurred. Maybe drunk. Maybe just desperate. I don't know how she found my new number, probably through one of the old friends who still hadn't chosen a side. Hey, she said. I know you probably hate me. I get it. IF ****** get up. I really did. But can we talk? There was a long pause. A sigh. Then, I lost my job. People think I'm some kind of monster. I didn't mean to hurt you. I swear I didn't. I just didn't know how to be what you needed. And I guess I resented that. Another pause. I miss you. I really do. I didn't reply. I never intended to. But a few weeks later, she tried again, this time through Instagram. She made a whole new account just to DM me. Please, just tell me how to fix this. I'm not sleeping. I can't eat. I think about you every day. Still, I didn't respond. And here's the real truth. Not because I wanted to punish her. Because by then, I didn't care anymore. The healing had worked. The new job, the new apartment, the long walks, the open talks with friends, it had all built something stronger inside me than what she ever tried to break. She became a shadow, a warning, not a wound. I rebuilt my life without her. Stronger, straighter, brighter. And she got exactly what she handed me: silence. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.